Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I am Bill, the company's expert, and I haven't live streamed, is that a word? Live streamed, there we go, in a while. So I'm a little bit rusty, so hopefully you will bear with me here. Today, we are going to talk about a couple of things. So glad for joining me. If you're looking for a job, you want to understand hiring and, how to best get job opportunities, where they are, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Employment in general, you're in the right place. We're going to cover a few things today. I'm going to talk about very briefly at the beginning, just this slightly new format I've got going. And instead of the usual format where I'm just answering every question from everyone as it pops by the stream and maybe, not do a great job, we're going to be covering one big topic today, and that is the job interview question: why should we hire you? Okay, I did a video about this last week, and but this is a really big topic, and there's a lot more you could say about this. In fact, when you think about it, it's basically the entire point of a job interview is to answer that one question. You're presenting yourself as a candidate for a job, and the interviewer, whether they are a recruiter or a hiring manager or anyone else, they're basically looking for a single answer to this question. In a nutshell, why should they pick you over any of the other candidates, any of the other contenders, right? So your entire performance, as it were, is related to giving them a good answer to this question. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. All the facets of it, what's really going on here, how to answer that question in its many forms, and how to answer that question for yourself, because it's the key to knowing your own selling point, as it were, as a job candidate. So we're going to get into that today. Before we do, though, I'm going to quickly answer one question that somebody left in the comments to one of my videos, because I thought it was a great question. We're going to start with that. And then at the end of the live stream, before we quit, also, as hopefully you guys know, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, occasionally I will do videos on other elements other than simply how to pass a job interview. I'm passionate about business. I have a big career in business, and I love what business is. I love how it is an alternative to, simply making money by working as an employee. If you understand business, it opens up a lot of possibilities. Like you could become self-employed, you could work for yourself. And I know that's an alternative that's very appealing to a lot of people. There are other things too. There are, like being an investor and all this kind of stuff if you have more money. But for a lot of people, especially young people starting out, the idea of possibly going your own path in life and creating your own job and making your own money, there's a lot of advantages. So we are going to talk about one topic related to that at the end of this live stream. We're going to be doing a sort of overview of the study of finance and why I highly recommend that you learn the basics of it. You will do so much better in life if you understand a few concepts from the world of finance. Even if you don't become an entrepreneur or anything, it'll just help you make you, if you understand what I'm saying, it'll help you to make better decisions in your personal life and in your career if you understand that. Okay. So we are going to jump right in. Oh, and I hope you enjoy what I've done with my hair. I really put a lot of time into it to try and just amaze you and keep you here watching my stream. If you don't stay for the talk, stay for my brilliant coif. Okay, here's the question that somebody sent in. This is from, let's see if I can make this bigger, because I'm old and I have to squint to see things. When I was younger, we used to laugh at old people who could barely see. They couldn't read little writing. Poetic justice, I guess. So this is from Angela Lycia, if I'm saying that right, who says, good videos, thank you. How can we handle a situation where you get rejected for something that is not mentioned in the job description? For example, the role was asking for someone skilled in PLC controls, electricity, and mechanical stuff, I guess, to give support in the field and train others. Okay, so that's what they were asking for. However, they rejected the prospect because he doesn't have supervisory or management experience? Okay, excellent question. I wanted to answer this because I know a lot of people are wondering. So you go for a job and you go down to presumably the job interview and you are ready to speak to the requirements that they mentioned in the job description, right? They said, we're looking for this, 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 this. So you go down there, you're all rehearsed, you're ready to answer questions about, how you can do all that stuff and how you have experience with it and all this kind of stuff. But then what they claim is that they've rejected you afterwards because you didn't have this other thing that they never even mentioned in the job description. Okay. Here's my response to this. A couple of things. First off, that could be some form of kiss off. Like, let's get that out of the way first. Okay. They made a decision. You are not going to be privy to their thought processes because they will not share those with anyone. Okay. That's how these things usually go. The people that decide, we're going to, choose this candidate over that one, they're not going to want to share their thought processes with anyone. For a variety of reasons, right? So when they give you a reason, if they send you a rejection letter and they say, I'm sorry, we didn't choose you because of X, 99.99999% of the time, they're never, if they do give you a reason, it's a lie. It's not the real reason. It's some kind of excuse or kiss off or they don't want it to feel awkward that they didn't give you a reason, so they got to give you a reason, so they give you a reason, but it's not genuine, right? So this could be that. Let's get that out of the way first, okay? Now let's go on the assumption that the reason they gave you in this situation is true, right? They rejected this candidate because they didn't have supervisory experience or management experience, even though that was never mentioned in the job description. Okay, now I've done videos before where I talk about something called a hidden elimination criteria. That's where, the hiring manager is the mastermind. They're the person that says, I would like to hire someone and I want them to have this, 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 and this. Okay, so they're sort of the mastermind that decides ultimately who gets hired, which candidate they select. And usually how this goes is they will have a sort of checklist of things that they want in a candidate. I want them to have these skills, this education, this experience, these traits. And then either it's something consciously decided on or not consciously decided on. There's also a list of soft skills in there. Like, for example, I don't want them to give me like a major aggressive argument over every time I ask them to do something, right? You might not explicitly state that, but that is one of the requirements, right? So they'll have several of those. Several of the soft skills will be in there. They have to be cooperative. They have to be personable. They have to be, pleasant and upbeat. These might be some of the requirements that maybe consciously people don't really think about, but they have them. Those are on there. So what they do then is they choose to publicize some of the things in that list in the job description. So they've said up front, we're looking for these things, and you're aware that we're looking for these things, right? Usually they don't publicize all of them because they don't want someone to fake it, right? If they put in the job description that, we're looking for someone who is ambitious or, has supervisory experience, right? What happens then is you get every candidate coming in saying that they have supervisory experience and that they're ambitious. They're saying it not because it's true, but because they know that that's what the employer is looking for. So they're trying to play up to that, right? If you don't disclose the thing you're looking for, usually then when you ask the candidate, do you have this? They'll be a little bit more honest and say, well, no, I don't have that. Because, it's kind of a stealth requirement. The candidate doesn't realize that was a mission critical requirement, right? And that's what the employer wants. They want an honest appraisal. So when they ask the candidate, do you have this? They get a more realistic, appraisal. People are not massaging the truth, shall we say. Okay, so it could be a hidden criteria. And that could be what's going on here, okay? So those would be the two most likely things, in my opinion. Either it's a total kiss-off and just an outright lie. Maybe the reality was the candidate walked in this particular situation, and, they looked disheveled, they hadn't washed their face in 4 days or combed their hair or anything like that, and they just looked a mess. And it was almost like an instant sudden death elimination. It didn't matter if this person was brilliant. They were not going to hire that person because that person had to interact with customers. They had to represent the organization, and it was just not going to make a good impression. If they're going to show up to a job interview looking like that, it's highly likely they'll show up to work looking like that. So no dice, right? Now, they don't want to say that when they send a rejection letter. They don't want to say, well, you appeared to be unkempt and your attire was inappropriate. They don't want to say that. So they'll make up something harmless like this. Oh, you didn't have supervisory experience, right? So, you know what I mean? Like that could have been the most likely thing. And secondarily, it could have been a hidden elimination criteria where they were looking for that all the time. It just, they intentionally didn't tell you about it in the job description to get a more honest appraisal of whether you had that or not. Okay. So that would be my answer to this. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a great question. That's something that, let me tell you, most people wonder about. And I know from experience, like 30 odd years ago when I was in my 20s and I was going to job interviews and you didn't understand what was going on. That was a big one. You would show up, you'd have everything they claimed they were looking for, and then they would just reject you outright. And it didn't make any sense, right? The other thing is that you're in competition against other people. So the way these things also go is that you could be fully qualified to do the job. Just because you got rejected doesn't mean that you're not qualified to do the job. That's another fallacy that people kind of assume. When they reject you, you kind of think, oh, they don't think I'm qualified, right? You got to admit that's probably flashed through your head if you've ever been rejected for a job that you've interviewed for, right? Well, incorrect. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not qualified. Usually most candidates that they end up interviewing could do the job. Now, the question is, which one would do it better in the opinion, usually the misinformed opinion of the decision makers, right? People go on first impressions. And, if you're one of the group that I try and cater to, which are introverts, detail-oriented, technically minded people, you're not the super slick salesman type, salesperson, right? They tend to make better first impressions. But often when it comes to the substance of a job, anything other than dealing with people, there's not a lot of substance there sometimes. It's been known that these people are like, all veneer and less substance, but the problem is job interviews, unfortunately, are about first impressions. You don't really get to know someone in an hour or two. You really don't, so this is what we're up against. Okay, so thank you to Angela Lycia for sending that in. That's a great question. I didn't want to try and type out an answer in the comments. I wanted to address that here. Okay, there are 20 of you here. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are all awesome. There's a shout out to Mickey9. Hello, Mickey9. And a shout out to Market Cassette. If I'm saying that right. I'm sure I'm not. I have a long and glorious history of mispronouncing everybody's name to the point of where it becomes insulting, unintentionally. So I apologize for that. But thank you for joining me. And everyone that's here. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today, of course, like the title suggests, is how to answer the job interview question, why should we hire you? Probably the single most important job interview question there is. And I'm almost out of my drink here, which today is sugar-free Red Bull. I think I'm developing a Red Bull habit, and that's not good. But if it does one thing, it makes me talk more And that's scary. Okay, so why should we hire you? Let's get into this. This question can be phrased like literally a million different ways. Okay, there's so many ways that you could phrase this question. You could say, why should we hire you? Why should I hire you? Why do you want to work here? What are your strengths? Right? These are examples of that question. The same question in different forms. Right? What makes you think you're the best candidate? They could say sort of pseudo-confusing forms of it. They could say, keeping in mind that I've already read your resume, why should I hire you? What's the greatest thing about you that isn't on your resume? You could just make up any form of this. The answer is always the same answer. You're going to say something positive about yourself that's your main selling point, right? You're going to say something awesome about you that would presumably make them think very highly of you and think that you're the best candidate of all the people that they're talking to for this position, right? Same answer. Why should I hire you? Oh, it's because I've got this amazing thing. Why do you want to work here? Oh, it's because I've got this amazing thing, or this list of amazing things. What are your strengths? Well, here's a list of the amazing things that I have, right? It's all the same question. And really, everything that they ask you at the job interview is geared towards answering this question. Why should they pick you? Okay, so don't be fooled. They may not use these exact words, but they will always ask this question in a job interview in some way, shape, or form. And it will summarize, the entire reason you guys are having this meeting. Okay. The other thing is that this is a great question. You want to be asked this question. You don't want them to ask negative things about you. You don't want them to say what's the worst thing about you, or what's your weakness, or tell me, how you didn't get along with a previous boss, or, what was the most annoying coworker you've ever dealt with, or tell me about a time you failed. You don't want to be asked questions like that. When they ask you those questions, you don't want to go on for 10 minutes and take up the whole interview time talking about how you failed and how, you're no good at this or that, right? Or how you didn't get along with people. Right? You want to get off those questions very quickly. Give them a very quick answer and then get back to questions like this, where you answer with essentially a sales pitch. Why you're awesome. Well, I have this education. I have this experience. I've got this accomplishment. I've done this project where I accomplished this. There was a time when someone asked me to do this and I did it, and the results were better than everybody predicted, and it was done quicker and it was done cheaper, and I got commended and I got promoted. These are the things you want to be saying in a job interview. If you only have 5 minutes to talk in a job interview, you want to spend it talking about stuff like this, right? So this is why you want to be asked this question. Okay, you can speak freely. Now, this is where preparation really comes in, and knowing what your selling point is. Okay, because really, a job interview is essentially a sales pitch for you, why they should hire you, right? It's really not that hard. You just say what you have, what you've done, and what you know. Very simple. Why should you hire me? Well, I'm a fully qualified computer scientist. I have this degree. I've got that degree. I've done this research work. I've had 5 years job experience working in this field, doing this, accomplishing this, right? These are reasons why they should hire you. Okay. So this is a great question. You want to be able to talk about this as long as they will let you. If they just give you an open floor, don't just say a thing and then stop, and then there's silence, and then they have to then move on to another question. Talk for as long as you possibly can. Okay, give them as many reasons as you can. Make sure, and it's okay to repeat yourself. There's been times when people have asked me Bill, you say that this question is the same as them asking you, what are your strengths? Well, what if they've just asked me, what are your strengths? It seems like you're saying I should give the same answer again. And I'm saying basically yes, and that's okay, right? Number one, sometimes you have to repeat yourself in a job interview because they're maybe writing things down, or, when you're talking, so they're only half listening to what you're saying. It's not really registering, right? I don't know if you've ever experienced that. But, like that's one reason. Another reason is that, look, that is the answer. And the answer isn't just one point. The answer is going to be several points. Why should they hire you? Well, let me tell you about my soft skills. As you can see, I'm awesome to deal with. I love this type of work. My ambition is to be doing this kind of thing, right? And this would be a tremendous opportunity for me. I think very highly of this role. Is my camera too bright? I'm going to turn down the brightness a little bit. It's like everything is white. It's like I'm talking to you from heaven or something. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to take. Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate. I got a window behind me, but this is the configuration of my office. I haven't figured out a practical way to really move things around. Anyway. Okay, now, like I mentioned in my video that I put out last week, the first thing that would come out of my mouth, if you're looking for a sort of formulaic answer, would be to say, oh, I was hoping you'd ask me that, right? That'd be a great way to start. Not in a sort of robotic, rehearsed way, but in a genuine way. I was hoping you'd ask me that. It's the first thing out of your mouth. It also makes them feel good. It feels like, oh, this is going well. They're happy with what I've just said, and I feel like the next thing I'm going to hear is probably also good, right? Okay. Now, one thing we got to make clear to everyone here, if you're new to this, what's a recruiter's job? I'm going to turn down the brightness on this camera too. What's a recruiter's job? What do they get paid to do? Well, just so everybody understands, so we're all on the same page here, recruiters don't actually write job descriptions. Like, for example, the requirements, the list of requirements for this position, that's not a recruiter who creates those. That's the hiring manager. The hiring manager then employs the recruiter to go out and find me candidates that have this list of things, right? That's a recruiter's job. So a recruiter gets a list of requirements from a hiring manager, and then the recruiter's job is then to go out and find candidates that have all of those things, right? That's how they get paid. That's why they get paid, because that's rather time consuming. And the really good recruiters, they will know a lot of people and they'll have access to a lot of people. So they can come back like less than 24 hours later and say, okay, I've got 10 people that are, that are fully qualified. They have all of those things, and they're all in this location, this region, and they work in this field. So presumably they would be interested. And I've reached out to all of them, right? Or they've put out an application and got 10 candidates that have applied, right? So it's because this is what they do 9 to 5. They tend to be very efficient at it, right? They know exactly where to post a job that's very cost effective, that gets the maximum results. And then they filtered out all the applicants, and they've got like, okay, here is my short list. And they've all got everything on the list you gave me. And they all want to do this job. And they're all willing to come in for a job interview. So that's why a company will employ a recruiter, either an internal recruiter that works for the same company, or they'll contract, they will outsource their recruitment and selection function to an external HR company whose job it is to go and procure candidates, right? So if you end up doing a job interview with a recruiter, this is what the recruiter is primarily, interested in. Do you have these requirements? So it's very important that when you go to the job interview, you communicate very clearly to them that, like, yes, I have all of these. You want proof? Let's talk about it. You want to know about my education? Sure, ask me anything. I'll reply promptly and with full and complete information, however deep you want to go, about this thing that I have. Same with my experience. You want to know if I've done this? Sure. Yeah. I have done that. Let me tell you how I did it. Let me tell you all the different ways I've done it. Just bang, 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 bang. You can see that I know my stuff, right? So check. I got that one. And you feel pretty confident that I have it. I'm not making this up. Right? So that's what the recruiter's job is. So if you're dealing with a recruiter, that's what they care about. They are going to be going down that list, whether they're going to be doing it right in front of you or they're going to be doing it in their mind or, just kind of on the DL. That's what they're doing. They want verification. You have every single thing on that list. Or if you don't have the exact literal thing, something very, very close, you can say, I don't have 5 years experience in that, but I have 2 years experience in this and 2 years in that and 2 years in this other thing. And when you put all those together, those are basically the same thing that you're looking for. So the recruiter goes, okay, check. Right? Now, if you're dealing with a hiring manager is a little bit different. They're the one that came up with that list of requirements. They have more flexibility. They are the one that's deciding to hire someone. So if they really, really like you, or they feel that, okay, well, technically you don't have this one thing, but you do have this thing that I never considered was like a really big bonus, then they're a lot more flexible. They tend to care more about, do they like you? Right? So that's how that works. Okay. So everyone needs to understand that. That's what you're dealing with. And it's a very good thing when you go to an interview to understand who it is that you're talking to. Are you talking to a recruiter? Are you talking to a hiring manager? Are you talking to somebody else, maybe the hiring manager's boss or, some other department head that, works with the hiring manager, or they will end up working with the person in this role if that's you, It's called like a dotted line relationship where, you consult, but you're not somebody's boss. They have to consult with you, right? So sometimes when you go to interviews and there's more than one person, if there's more than just a recruiter and a hiring manager, there's other people involved. Usually that's what those other people are. They're people that kind of have a say in the decision, but they're not directly involved, right? So all of those people and the hiring manager, they care more about whether they like you. You could be the most qualified person in the world. You could have on paper like all these amazing accomplishments, but if they meet you and you're off-putting, you've got a real negative attitude, you're very unfriendly, or you're argumentative, or you're just pissed off about something, or you take offense to the first thing that they ask you, or, whatever. And there's an asterisk there because I know, I know recruiters and hiring managers can be damn rude sometimes. I've experienced a lot of that. I've seen a lot of that, as I'm sure you guys have too, right? They can have this tremendous cutting rudeness, but sometimes that's a test. Not a lot of the time, but sometimes it is. They intentionally do. I worked for a wonderful person. They own several companies, and they would do that in interviews. They would ask these like cutting questions, like intentionally, just to see, how the person responds to it. Right? They were like the nicest, most amiable person ever, but they would intentionally do that in job interviews. So you do get that, Okay, so hopefully everybody understands what recruiters are looking for and what hiring managers are looking for. Recruiters are looking for, do you have the requirements? They want to check them off. And the hiring manager cares more about, do they like you as a person? Do they think that you would work well together with them? They care less about, the exact like rigid requirements and more about, do they see potential in you and do they like you? So it helps to know who you're talking to so you can tailor what you say. Okay. Now, always remember that soft skills are a big part of job interviews. Usually your resume gets you the interview, but your interview gets you the job, right? They're two different things. Resume is kind of your accomplishments on paper. The interview is more to do with what you're like to deal with, right? A lot of technical people misunderstand this to their detriment, unfortunately. It took me a few years to really catch on to this when I was a lot younger, right? You tend to think, oh, you're looking for these technical qualifications. Well, I have them, so you should hire me. And then when they don't, you go, what? How could you not hire me? I'm fully qualified. Yeah, you are. It's not about whether you're fully qualified. That's what got you the interview. But to pass the interview, it's not the same thing again. It's what you're like as a person, your communication skills, your attitude, your ambition, things like this, generally speaking. Okay, so it's important to have a little bit of personality in your answer. You don't just rattle off a list of requirements. If you show excitement about, why this thing that you did is really cool and why you want to do more of it, coincidentally, they're looking for it in the job description, that can get you a lot of points, right? Now, what I'd recommend is when you go to a job interview, I'd recommend that you come prepared and you print off in hard copy on a piece of paper the original job description. So the ad that you answered, they said, like, we're looking for this job and, here's the job and here's the requirements. And if you want to apply, do this. Print that, okay, on a piece of paper. Now, I know that's a little bit old school to walk in there with a piece of paper, but I'm here to tell you it's actually fine. Don't worry about that. And especially for questions like this, you have the master list of all the things they said they were looking for. Here's all the requirements. Now, if you, ahead of time, you highlight that list, like for every sentence, every item, you maybe highlight one word. Like it says, we want someone that has supervisory or managerial experience. You highlight the word supervisory. It's like, oh yeah, okay. So what you can do is when you answer that question, you have that piece of paper on the table. Now, you don't look down at it the entire time and break eye contact, and just start talking like to the paper. You're maintaining eye contact with them the entire time, but occasionally you glance at it, right? Just like that, just like a sort of just little glance. Oh yeah, and I'm going to speak to that point, right? You don't have to memorize the entire job description. Okay, it's okay to keep that in front of you. It also shows that you came prepared. Now, I would not do this on a smartphone. There's a lot of stigma with putting a smartphone on the table. Sometimes people think that you're recording them. Sometimes people think that you're distracted because you're looking for messaging or or looking at the clock or whatever. There's all kinds of issues of putting a smartphone on the table in these types of interviews and meetings. Okay, so that, unfortunately, I would not recommend. But that's why the paper thing works. You got it in front of you, but there's no stigma with having a piece of paper. The only exception is that if you're like a tech person going to you're interviewing for some highly technical job that has to do with bleeding edge, cutting edge technology, where the company is extremely future facing and, they're adopting all the latest stuff, then maybe, it's that old school way of doing it might make the wrong impression. But in every other situation, this is what I'd recommend. It's okay to do that. Just as I say, make sure you're not reading the paper, right? It's just there to glance at. 90% of your where you look should be at the person, and only 10% or less or something should be on the paper. Okay, so it's okay to bring that in, because they're looking for many, many things. That's a lot of things to talk about. Imagine how much time it would take if you talked to every single one of their requirements and gave examples and sort of proved to them in a sense that you have done that, because you can say a few things about it, give them a lot of detail about it. Like if they say, we are looking for someone with supervisory experience, right? How would you deal with someone who's insubordinate to you? And how have you dealt with that in the past? You could go into great detail. Oh, there was this one time where I did this and this is what happened. And so I did this and this was the result. What I found is that the way to do it is, you say this at the beginning of the day or the shift or the project or whatever, and that prevents this issue from even coming up in, later on. And then if it does come up, you do this, right? So you're giving them a lot of detail about it, and they're going, okay, this person knows how to supervise. You see, you're kind of proving it to them. right? So imagine if you did that with every single point that they said they were looking for. That's a lot of content. This is why it's good to talk as much as they'll let you talk before they sort of cut you off and ask the next question. And that's why it's okay to have that list in front of you so you never run out of things to mention. I write notes, but my notes are in such poor writing that it's embarrassing. This is what I'm trying to actually read right here. You like my old school solution? Post-it notes, right? Very, very low tech, but it's still number one as far as I'm concerned for convenience. You can stick it to the wall, you could stick it to your forehead, you could stick it to the screen, you could carry it with you into different rooms and then stick it on somebody's monitor and give it to them. I know you can do that with electronic versions of it, but they said 30 years ago they had a solution for that and that it would eliminate Post-it notes. Being a young guy, I was only too eager for that to happen. Well, it never happened. It hasn't happened yet. I think it's 3M that holds the patent on Post-it notes, and you're still making a killing every year. Okay, let's see if I can read my own writing. So I talked about printing it off. Are papers distracting? People have asked that. If you put papers on the table, no, they're not distracting. They're only distracting if you make them distracting. If you're constantly shuffling them, or say you're showing your papers to the camera, then that's a no-no, right? But if you're like you just put them in front of you and you leave them alone and occasionally glance at it, that's not distracting, right? If you've done your preparation and you've rehearsed job interviews a couple of times, it shouldn't be distracting at all. Now, the other thing I want to cover here that I didn't cover in my videos is a lot of people have these smart-ass answers to this question, or at least they claim they do. Because when I get comments in the comments section, when you say, what's the best answer to why should we hire you? People say, well, why would I want to work here? It's like, yeah, don't say that, right? Or what's the best answer to why should we hire you? They say, because I need money so I don't starve. I got to make rent, right? No, don't say that. First of all, that answer is even worse because you have misunderstood the question. Right? They're not asking, why should we give you a job? Why do you need a job? That's not what they're asking. They're asking, why should we pick you specifically over all these other people? What's so special about you? That's what they're asking. So that smart-ass answer doesn't even make any sense, right? So don't say that. Okay. Another popular question that people quite rightly ask is, what if I don't meet all the requirements? Right? They said in the job description they're looking for these 20 things. Well, I only meet 15 of them. The last 5 I don't actually have, right? That's a great question. Here's what's going on. They like to say stuff in job postings. They like to say, the candidate must have this. All these like wonderful things, right? Now, to find someone who actually has all of those is quite a tall order. So really, a lot of the things in that list are not actual requirements. They're just nice to haves, right? Now, here's the deal. If they received your job application with your resume, presumably, and based on that, they invited you in for a job interview, that signals that you have all of the things in their list that were actual, true requirements. You got them, okay? So don't worry when you go to the interview about like, oh no, it says in the job description that they're looking for someone with this, and I don't have it, or I don't have it fully. Don't worry about it, because whatever you indicated on your resume, that was strong enough to pass the test. They will never invite candidates to a job interview who don't have a mission critical requirement, right? If they're going to hire, let's say a hospital is hiring a new brain surgeon, right? And in the job description, when they're looking for brain surgeons, it said you must be a fully qualified medical doctor, right? That's a requirement. And that's a hard requirement. There's no way around it. You have to be able to legally practice medicine in this country for us to hire you. There's just no two ways about it. I don't care if you've won 6 Nobel Prizes. You need to be a fully qualified medical doctor. I don't care if you've got a PhD in computer science, but no medical degree. You need that, right? So some things are like hard requirements, right? Other things are not hard requirements. They might say, we're looking for someone who's willing to relocate, right? Now, let's say in your job application, you responded to the job ad and you said, I'm a fully qualified medical doctor, right? With a current license, okay? But I'm not willing to relocate. Okay? And they invited you to the interview anyway. Well, that signals that relocation requirement, that's not a hard requirement. If they find someone that's really awesome, that's got all the mission critical stuff, we could maybe work around the whole relocation thing, right? That's what they're signaling. Because if relocation was an absolute requirement, what would be the point in talking to you? There's only one answer. No. You must be able to relocate for this job. This job is at the North Pole. Okay, we're going to do some high-tech brain surgery as we float on the ice in the Arctic Ocean at the North Pole. You have to be able to travel there for this, right? So if you say you can't relocate, why would they want to talk to you? That doesn't make any sense, right? You've said, I will not relocate, and they still want to talk to you. That shows that, okay, it's not a hard requirement. Oh, hello to Joe Mama. I love your name. That was Spinal Tap. Not everybody got that joke in Spinal Tap, right? It was like Joe Mama Shapiro or something, whatever his name was, the drummer that blew up, right? It was Joe Mama, right? Anyway, that's the kind of thing that CEOs are not supposed to say. That's why I'm a former CEO. It's great. I can say these things. This makes it all worth it. In a way. Okay, so that's the important thing. So first of all, you need to understand, if you don't meet some of the requirements, but they called you in for an interview, don't worry about it because it's apparently not a requirement, okay? Now, sometimes this has been known that if you don't mention that second requirement and there's not a lot of stiff competition for this job, they will call you in just to see. Because you have 9 out of 10 requirements, but you don't have the 10th, you haven't mentioned the 10th, so they don't know. They want to see if you have it. Okay? Now, if they do that, that suggests that there's not a lot of strong competitors going up for this job, and they're going to have to compromise or not fill it, right? So once again, it's good news for you, okay? So if you can sort of fake it, not lie, but just say like, look, I don't have experience. I technically don't have experience in that. However, I've done these things that are similar. I don't know if you regard that as a substitute or not. I think it's certainly, something that will demonstrate that I am capable of doing the job, right? My learning curve might be a little bit longer than you were hoping, but I can do it, right? But the question is whether you see it that way as the decision maker. Sometimes you get that. Now, for those you want to put on a compelling case, you want to have an answer ready. You could say, well, technically I don't have that, but I do have this, which is very similar. And in the end, it gives you the same skills. And I know how to deal with the same types of situations. And then be prepared to give some detail about it, right? Now, the hiring manager will be in a good place to ascertain whether that's an acceptable substitute. So if you feel pretty confident, you have a contingency, you have an answer ready, and they like you, usually it'll be okay. But you can do that stuff. You can substitute one type of experience for another. You can say, I don't have that, but I have this. You can sometimes substitute quality of experience for quantity, where they say, we're looking for someone with 10 years in this situation. You can say, well, I don't have 10 years. I got 5. But in those 5 years, I've been moved around several times. So I've seen a variety of situations. Some people, they stay in one situation for 10 years, and that's all they know. I've moved around. I've seen like different ways of doing things. So that 5 years experience, that's like high quality 5 years experience. So I believe that I'd be fully qualified to do this job. I don't feel any issues of me stepping into that role. I feel perfectly comfortable because I've dealt with a whole variety of situations that could arise. A lot of people don't get that experience until they're thrown into this role. Right? So sometimes that works too. Substituting quality of experience for quantity. And there's many other things you can do in there, like substitute different things for different things. You could sometimes you can substitute education for experience and vice versa. Not all the time. Depends what we're talking about, but sometimes you can. Right? But, yeah, that's the deal. So to kind of sum this up, when you go to a job interview and they ask you, why should we hire you? Or all the different forms of that question, what are your strengths? Why do you want to work here? It's all the same question. You answer by basically going down that list of requirements and speaking to each one. If you technically meet it outright, just say so. And then be prepared to talk a little bit about it if they ask you questions. If you don't meet it precisely, have an answer for what's an acceptable substitute or why that's not really a concern that you don't have this technical thing that they asked for because you have this other thing that substitutes for it, right? The fact that they called you in for a job interview tends to suggest that they're okay with the fact that you don't technically meet that requirement. They saw in your resume that this could be an acceptable substitute, right? So you shouldn't feel too apprehensive about that. Okay? So the first thing out of your mouth is like, oh, I'm glad you asked me that. And then you say, well, it's because, and then you go down that list of requirements. You said you're looking for someone who has this. Well, I have that. You said also that you're looking for someone who has this, and I have that too. Right? You say here that you're looking for, 2 years experience, at this. I have 8 years experience doing that, right? When they say, why do you want to work here? Another form of the question, same thing. And then you do as much of that as they'll let you get away with before they jump in and start. Either they move on to the next question or they ask for corroborating detail. Okay? That's how we address the question, why should we hire you? In all its forms, okay? And in order to ace that question, you really need to know what your selling point is, okay? And your selling point is always going to be what you have, what you know, what you've done, right? And to a possibly slightly lesser degree, your soft skills. You're a great communicator. You're good at collaborating with people. You might have experience as a supervisor, as a leader, as a coordinator. Someone who can get consensus in a group. You're not just a person who just shouts their own opinion, and then if anyone doesn't echo their opinion, they go, you're an idiot, and then the relationship breaks down. You can actually try and come to a compromise, or you can try and convince them, sell them on your idea. I say this because of this. Or, you don't believe me? Let's do a demo. Seeing is believing. Let's see if this holds up. You have ways of getting consensus, right? Or you're just a pleasure to deal with. You don't argue back to your boss. They like you because when they ask you to do something, it's as good as done. They know that, I don't have to stand and supervise that person. They'll just get on with it. And they'll come back and let me know if there's an issue. But other than that, they'll just do it. They'll do it on time, and they'll do a good job, right? Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. That's why this is a very important question. Everyone has to know what the answer to this is for them. This is essentially your pitch. And it's going to slightly change depending on what job you're going for. Like every job, you're going to speak to the requirements of that job. But knowing what you do well, is great. Especially if, say, you're not the world's best salesperson, but you have talents in other areas. Well, let me tell you what those are. Here's what I can do for you. You want this done? I can do that. I can take care of this. I can do it efficiently. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look at some of these questions here. If anyone does have a question, send it to me in a super chat. That's the way to cut through everything. In the past, I found these live streams quite weird because it was always a race to try and keep up with the pace that people were asking me stuff, and I couldn't really give good answers in the time allotted. So let's just see here. Jay Binks is here. Had an interview last week with the president of sales. He asked me maybe 2 questions about my resume. It was over an hour discussion. Was this just a vibe check? Yeah, that's a big part of job interviews. It's to see what you're like as a person. That's the purpose of them. So yes, a vibe check. Captain Average, that's an awesome name. I got a job offer but wanted more information. The company ghosted me. Is that a red flag? I will do I'm going to do a live stream or video on ghosting because this is the new normal. It has been for some time. In every other area of business, if you are dealing with people at a certain level, it's not a trivial thing you're dealing with like this. And this would fall under that, asking for a job or they're trying to fill a job. It's a big deal, So when you're dealing with people and this is the topic, one would expect that you would be treated politely and courteously. You'd follow a certain protocol. And ghosting is sort of obviously not that, right? Especially if, you've gotten far in the process. You've been to a couple of different interviews. You had a great relationship. All of a sudden, they drop off the face of the planet, right? Very bad. So we're going to talk about that. Bottom line is just expect it. That's apparently the new normal. It sucks that it's the new normal. It shouldn't be the new normal, but it is. So don't cry over it. Just expect it. It just means like no or no for now. That's what it means. That's how you interpret it. It doesn't necessarily mean like a middle finger. It doesn't necessarily mean you're woefully unqualified. It doesn't mean any of those things. It just means, we're done certainly for now. Move on, right? In a good way. Don't waste any more time with these people, especially if they ghost you, right? Joe Mama says, I'm going to have an internship interview today. Can you tell me what the difference between the first round interview versus the potential second? I've done a whole video on that, so go check that out. Second interviews. Just watch that video. It's like 10 minutes. I like old school paper and sticky memo too. Yeah, they're still useful for certain things. Pearl, I remember Pearl. Hello, Bill. Is it possible to send you a token without going through a super chat route? What do you mean by token? Like a message? Super chat would be the best way to get my attention. I guarantee you a full and complete answer if you do a super chat. Sending me questions, if you're talking about a question, like you can access my email address through YouTube as you can for all YouTube channels. You can see the person's, email address, but don't send me questions that way. I can't type out email answers to everybody who's got a question. Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to, that's why I originally was doing live streams, right? To try and answer people's questions. And we got Mr. E and we got Lewis going like that. I do my own sound effects, by the way, and I'm here every Tuesday. Well, every Monday. I'm probably going to be doing these every second Monday. That's my plan. We'll see how that works out. Okay, so something I talk about on my channel is alternatives to working as an employee, because quite frankly, there are alternatives to just working as an employee to make money. Now, some people work happily as employees their entire lives. And that's fine. I'm going to turn the brightness down on my camera again, because once again, it looks like an angel talking. And no, that's not ego. Well, maybe it is, but I should glue on like one of those like Halloween beards, like a big beard. I could have this hair with a white beard. It would look awesome. I'd look like God. And it would just be white. And then me tripping over my words. What was I talking about? Oh yeah. There are alternatives to working as an employee. Like you need money. Money has to come from somewhere. Obviously, being an employee is the default thing. And I don't know what the numbers are. I would guess it's something like 3/4 of all people, certainly in the West, work as an employee. They work for someone else. And they've basically said, in a way, like they've said, look, I don't know how to make money, but I understand you do, and you need someone to help you make more money. And you've said you're looking for someone. So here, I will do that little job, that piece of the puzzle, in exchange for you handling every other piece of the puzzle that involves making money. And you're going to pay me for my time and my work. But you're the one that's in control. You're the one that's running things, right? You're in charge. Right? I don't want to learn any of that. I shouldn't have to learn any of that. I want to focus instead on this particular thing, and you pay me to do that, right? That's what being an employee is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's actually great. There are a lot of things in this world that you need that focus. I mean, how can you discover like a cure for cancer or, push the boundaries of human knowledge when you're like also trying to dominate the world of business? It just doesn't work. It's very, very hard. It's a distraction. So there's definitely a need for that kind of compartmentalization. But for other people, working for someone else their entire lives, that's just not really appealing. And it's maybe a misuse of their talents. And they have the ambition to be more in control of what they do. They don't work on somebody else's terms. These are the work hours. This is what you do. This is how much money you make. Like you want to be in control of that. You decide, I want to design my own job. I want to tailor my job. I want to be able to focus on the things that I do well. And then for the other things that I don't really do well or I don't like doing, but still need to be done, I'm going to either partner with somebody or I'm going to give that to someone else, right? So I can just achieve maximum productivity by only doing the things that I'm awesome at and that I enjoy, right? That's what I want to do. I could like generate so much value doing that rather than working under somebody's thumb. And usually those people might turn out to be idiots that don't know what they're doing. So it's better for me if I do this. So it's a great cause, if you want to call it that. So that's what I'm interested in. That's what I've always been interested in. That's how I got my career basically in business. And when you learn business, you learn like many different topics, right? And I've talked about this before. I have my course there about the $100 MBA that basically covers that. Now, it's basically just a mirror of everything you do in a real MBA, like in a MBA that you would take in university that costs like upwards of $10,000 US. And it takes 2 years of your time and you go to classes and all this kind of stuff. Same thing. It doesn't matter where you learn it. Okay. You can learn from anywhere, but it's a collection of different concepts. One of those concepts is finance, right? It's the understanding of money in its purest form. Now, the first thing everybody needs to know is that there's a difference between finance and accounting, because you may have heard the term accounting, right? But it's a different thing. Accounting is basically money in the past. Finance is money in the future. So if you're wondering, where did the money go? How much did we spend? How many people bought our product in the last month? Those are all questions to do about what happened in the past, right? So those are all accounting type questions. How much did it cost us to do this? How much tax did we pay, right? How much are we paying for utilities? And would it, was it more or less than a year previous to that, a year prior? Those are all accounting questions. Finance is different. Finance is money in the future. It's about what could we do or what should we do. So if you want to raise money, let's say you want to do something and you need money for it. Well, what are our options? We could borrow money, right? We could maybe instead of buying it outright, we could rent it. We could try and get friends and family to invest. Like where could you raise money? You could get an angel investor to come in and partner with you. So it's not your thing that you're doing. It's you and them kind of are a partnership that you do this thing together and they bring the money. Maybe you do the work and they bring the money or something. Money and advice, right? So what could we do? What should we do? That's the domain of finance. So if you want to say, what should we do in the future? What would be the most advantageous? How would we make the most money? How would we spend the least and make the most? That's finance. Now, things you could do, you're talking about the future. So the future is not written yet. This is like the Terminator movie, right? The future is not set. No fate but what we make, right? That's the world of finance. It's that action-packed, right? Just remember this. So finance is the study of what could you do? How can you do it, right? Obviously, if you have two options, we could either do option A or we could do option B. Which one's the most risky, right? What's the payoff for option A and how risky is it? What's the payoff for option B and how risky is that? How do you compare those two? It's almost like you're comparing apples to oranges. It's like, it's not the same thing, right? Finance is the study of that stuff. And I would encourage anyone to pick up, if you're interested at all in sort of managing your life, or at least your career or your financial life a little bit better, pick up a book on finance, like preferably a textbook. You don't have to read it like in its entirety, but just to skim over. I highly encourage people to do that for just this little effort and literally $5, $10, whatever that costs on Amazon to order a cheap textbook on finance. You could learn so much that will pay off for years and years to come. Understanding how money works. If you want to be rich, it helps to understand how money works. And actually, it turns out that, the upper class, the rich people, as a requirement to be able to run anything, if you inherit a fortune, the family trusts you with you're now the heir to some fortune. These people, they all basically have to know finance in order to be able to manage that money and not squander it, not waste it, hold on to it, hopefully grow it, and then pass it on to their children. So it's it allows you to do that kind of stuff, to be responsible with money, to understand what you're getting into, to understand how everything works. Right? That's finance. I'd highly encourage you. It's not accounting, it's finance. Accounting is, let's look at what's already happened and, basically, like what they say about accountants, they're bean counters. It's a little derogatory, but it's basically true. Here's what happened. You don't deal with risk. You don't deal with potential returns. You deal with facts. This is what happened. This is where the money went. It went into this bank account, then it went out to this, in this payment to that person, right? And we're just going to write that down and present it. That's accounting. Now, I'm not disparaging accounting. Okay, there's a lot of great accountants and they do a very necessary job. Where I disparage accountants is when people tend to think that that's the only thing you need to know. Oh, it is not, trust me. For example, if you want to make money, usually accountants have absolutely no idea how to do that because that's not part of accounting. All you know is that a customer bought one of your products and they initiated a transaction. Okay, great. And the accountant can tell you what happened to that cash. Where did it go to? It went into this account and then it went into this account. Then it was portioned off to pay for multiple costs, multiple expenses, right? Which means that you then owe this much tax on at the end of the year, which was put into here to appropriate it for that later on. They can tell you that, but they have absolutely no idea how that, what made that customer purchase your product in the first place. Absolutely no understanding of that. That's nothing to do with accounting. That's the area of marketing, for understanding how to get a customer to buy something. And all of these, finance and accounting, where they talk about money, money is an abstraction in a way for behavior, right? If you don't believe me, ask an economist on that. What is money? Money is something that gets people to behave a certain way, right? For example, like I say, can you help me? And the person says, no, I'm busy. I got stuff to do. You say, okay, well, I'll give you $1,000 if you can help me. And they say, sure, what do you need? Right? You see how you're influencing behavior. That's the purpose of money. Right? So it's a very interesting topic. And so to really understand it, I highly recommend that everybody understand the principles of finance, just the basics. Really not that hard. If you've done high school math, okay, you can understand this stuff. Don't be fooled by the fact that it's taught at a master's level in university. If you've got, like, say, grade 12 math, you can easily understand this. It's all about concepts. And like accounting, most of the math is very, very simple, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, maybe an exponent in there or something, But you don't need to do any math to understand, just understanding the concepts. You will look at the world differently. If you go to a company and you see a lot of things that happen, what's most people's, God, this is a rambling talk, isn't it? What's most people's impression of like a place where they work? They look at their company, especially if they work in a big company. I'm adjusting the brightness here of this camera. And they look around at stuff and they go, God, this is just stupid. I don't understand why certain projects are green lit. And I don't understand why other projects are canceled. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand, like, who makes these decisions? What's the criteria to make these decisions? It doesn't make any sense. A lot of times, if you understand basic concepts in finance, then when you go to work, if you work in a large company, like say 1,000 employees and greater, and you look at a lot of the projects they're doing, and how they're doing it, or some big business decisions, all of a sudden it makes sense. It's like, I see why they did that. I now understand why they killed this project, or why they initiated this strange project, or why they've tried to do this, or why they've tried to do that. You know what I mean? It all of a sudden falls into place. So that's really cool. But the cooler part is when you can start to predict what they should do or what they're going to do, right? That's the real benefit here. So for those people who are wanting to start a business, or you're wanting to take more control of your financial life or more of your career, I'd highly recommend that you start by just cracking open a textbook on this, just, a couple of hours, just to learn a couple of these basic concepts, right? Other people, if you are interested in the world of banking, like pure finance, like money, banking, insurance, that kind of stuff, risk and return, portfolio management, wealth management, all that kind of stuff. If you're interested in that, some people are. You want to watch all these movies they've made about Wall Street, and they throw all these financial terms around. And you want to understand what the hell they're talking about when they talk about capital structure, or, different things like this. What are options or derivatives, or, like whatever they talk about in the news, right? It'll teach you that too, for whatever that's worth. And a lot of times it's not that you might necessarily deal with that in your life or in your career, but it's the concept of what's actually going on. A lot of those apply to everybody's everyday life. And you can come out on top by understanding these concepts. Anyway, so that's probably all I'm going to say on it. If you are interested in that, I've done some live streams before. I had a live stream up until recently. I can't even remember what the hell it was called, but it was like how to start a business. Basically, it's for entrepreneurship. And I don't know if I'm going to continue with that. I really enjoyed doing it, and I know there's some people that are definitely interested in learning that stuff. But I think I could probably do a better job if I sort of packaged it differently into answering maybe one big question per live stream, something like that. Like have it more on a specific topic rather than just a general Q&A free-for-all. So if you have any suggestions for what I should do or how I should include that in this channel, let me know. But I'm probably going to do dedicated live streams to that stuff, and then we'll see if people are into that or not. Until then, that's probably it for today. Thank you for the 18 people that are here now and everybody who sort of stopped by. And I will be back in probably 2 weeks to the day. So in Monday in 2 weeks at this time, 10 o'clock, which is Central Time in North America. If you are interested in learning more about any of these topics, I have these courses that you've probably seen. They've been up on the screen the entire time. Check this out. All of the courses there's details in the description box below the video. If you are looking for a job or you're wanting to sort of, just up your career, go for higher level jobs, go for better paying jobs, more desirable jobs. You don't know where to look. You don't know where they are. They are out there. Okay. Or you want to learn how to network, or maybe my favorite topic, which is networking for introverts, people that, you don't want to go to an event and just start talking to random people. There's a lot better ways of networking than that, especially if you're more like a normal person and not some slick salesperson type that's all talk. I packaged all of that into this course. So check that out if you're interested in that. It'll help you with job interviews and that kind of stuff too, but that's not the main focus. The main focus is showing you a couple of different ways to get hired, including some ways that you may have not thought about before. If you're interested in the business side, you want to learn business, you want to advance your career by incorporating those skills into your career as an employee, you want to get promoted and all this kind of stuff, I have this course, the $100 MBA. Okay, details and description. I cover everything, like it says, everything that you would learn in a regular MBA that's accredited at a university that you would pay tens of thousands of dollars for. It would take you at least a year, usually 2 years. I cover everything and I do it for $100. And the reason that works is because there's no tests, there's no evaluations, and essentially you get a reading list. I recommend certain books, textbooks, that you then go out and buy on Amazon for cheap. And then you read them on your own schedule to the depth that you want. And I kind of have a few videos that I guide you through, and I say, this is the important areas and what I think are the less important areas. You can take it or leave it. You could go as deep as you want, or you could just sort of you just skim these books and just get a very brief overview. So it's as deep as you want to go. It's what you get out of it. Okay. And if that's the type of solution you're looking for, here's a very cost-effective solution for you. And then the most recent course that I have that's just come out actually about a month ago is, let's see if I get my arms right here, because the video is backwards. So that's why I'm terrible at pointing at things. There. You can't see because of my microphone. I'll see if I can move that out of the way. This is the most recent course. It's called Write Like a Professional, where if you really want to get promoted, if you want to work as an executive, if that's kind of maybe an ambition of yours, one of the skills that you need, regardless of your industry or your background, is you need good written skills. Okay, that's one requirement of operating at that level. Because generally speaking, if you're at the executive manager level, you're doing a lot of interactions with other people, usually people that are outside of your organization. And so being able to communicate very effectively, very diplomatically, and representing your organization well and giving a good impression, that's very important. Being able to say exactly what you want to say, but not offending people, not creating issues by how you phrase something, that's very important. And in this day and age where at the bottom level, sort of writing skills are being eroded, at the top level, they're just as healthy as they've always been. You deal with a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or, an executive like a CFO at most companies that are professionals. It's very, very rare to find one of those people illiterate and writing at the level of like a 12th grader. So I basically take you through that, how to instantly improve your writing in a very short amount of time. And it'll basically, if you take the advice and change the way you write and adopt some of these tips, it'll enable you to become a contender, at least when it comes to writing skills, to be promoted into those types of roles. It also is something that if you're going to want to be an entrepreneur and represent your organization and all this kind of stuff, it will help you there also. Okay. But yeah, so that's that's the latest course. So thank you for joining me today. You guys are awesome. I will see you in 2 weeks and with another live stream. Until then, always remember, you're highly employable and you're awesome. And I mean that. Everybody's got talent and there's a job out there for everybody. It's just a matter of connecting with it. Thanks very much. Take care. I'll see you in a couple weeks.